I can't wait till Jordan Peterson talks about this. Inside each man there are two wolves. One fey with giant horns and the other a young man who's young and sexy.
Chapter 6. It was veiled in roses and ivy, so basically that Fresh Prince picture.
Yep, she's gone off to Bel Air.
I've never
with
watched
Uncle
the
Phil.
show.
Are you fucking kidding
me? I never watched the show. I never watched it.
How?
So.
Jesus Christ.
What? I did not have access to the remote control in my parents' house when I was growing up.
It was like one of the most shows that everybody watched.
I did not watch
it. It was not even something that your crazy parents would have problems with.
I know, but I didn't watch much TV growing up. I wasn't quite allowed to, and so, I didn't see much. I grew up in a cave. In the backwoods. In the ass end of nowhere.
Okay.
You're gonna show me what it looks like? Oh my Okay. Okay. I see it. Nope. Never watched it.
They have a butler named Jeffrey.
They have a butler.
Yeah.
Never watched it.
It's disappointing.
I mean,
it's not one of those shows that I'm like, oh my god, now we have to watch it. Like, it's not that, but it's just like, my god.
Never got to watch it. I did not have access to the remote when I was growing up.
I could see it. Why wouldn't your parent? Well.
Okay, and socializing. There was that giant revival going on in my hometown. So, like, the only TV shows that anybody would talk to me about were, like, Christian TV shows.
I mean, it wasn't a Christian TV show, but it wasn't like a non-Christian TV show.
If it wasn't a Christian TV show, then that was the devil. You need to burn that. You need to actually put it in a pile and burn it. That's what they would do. Like, along with the Britney Spears CD. Like, needs to burn. Because it'll send you to hell if you don't,
I didn't like Britney Spears growing up because that was the cool thing not to like, but I like her now.
I didn't care one way or the other. Anyway.
I'm just laughing at, she's like, it's to our former manner, can't compare, and then I'm like, and lo and behold, I'm the Prince of Bel Air.
Light and movement and texture. I could hardly drink it in fast enough. Oh right, she's an artist, so like this is.
Oh yeah, that's.
Yeah,
right.
she's gonna. It's basically, you know how Beauty and the Beast, like she comes in and then there's a library and she falls in love with the library and all of a sudden she likes this beast that much more. This one, it's gonna be, oh my gosh, you have paint? Ah.
Oh, here's this muttery or whatever it's called. Instead of the library, he's gonna get this one of those stupid like art centers or. God, it's gonna be.
He'll hand her an easel and she'll just have butterflies in her tummy.
So is like, do you think Gaston is gonna be like a fairy or
Isaac? Mr. Barn Boy.
Right, because she's gonna be like, oh no, these fairies are really different, and he's gonna be like, they're gonna come and kill us and get the townspeople ready to invade Prithia.
I don't know if it's gonna go quite that direction. I think she's probably gonna, like, from the sound of things, and I haven't heard much about the story, but from the sound of things, she's probably gonna have some sort of, like, there's probably gonna be some sort of weird fairy politics going on inside Prithian, or Prithia. Is it Prithian? It's Prithian. Some sort of weird fairy politics, and she's going to get pulled into that, and there's going to be fairy monsters that she's got to fight against, but she's not going to fight them. She's just going to scheme and plot against them a lot. So, like, that's my bet. But then again, Isaac could be Gaston, and they could end up, like, I have no idea. I can't see anyone in her hometown being particularly useful against fairies. Her sisters. Then again, if it follows the original plot of the story, like the old classical plot of the story, she might go back to visit her family just to make sure they're okay. And that's when Isaac can kind of become Gaston. The faint stench of metal ticked my nostrils. I'm sure that's supposed to be tickled. Alright, so it's really, really quiet there. I wonder if it is Beauty and the Beast, where like all the people who lived in the palace or the manor or whatever have been like transformed into either animals or probably not bits of furniture, but animals or something like that. Because there's a horse that's pretty clearly sentient. So, like, was everybody magicked into something else? Is that why it's so eerily quiet?
You never know.
The thought of those claws pawing through my cloak to find my knife made my mouth go dry. I tugged on the reins, but the mare remained stationary. Have you not figured out that this damn horse is sentient? Winced as soreness and hunger racked my senses. She's wincing again. Oh yeah, she's wincing again. A lot of wincing. And flickering.
Get this girl a thesaurus.
Honestly, I've noticed that with a lot of authors that I've read. They have a tendency to gravitate towards certain words. I remember, which one was it? There was one author, like, she kept on using the same words again and again and again, and it was almost like a drinking game. It's like, oh, she just described this as, I can't remember, it was either slithered, it might have been slithered. There was some word for wet, but I don't think it was moist. But she used it a lot, and after a while I was just kind of like, yeah, that's just the way she sounds when she's in her head. That's how she writes. They call it voice. So this lady's voice here, Sarah J. Moss. Anyway, lots of wincing, lots of flickering.
Clearly.
I tensed as I entered the room.
Okay. It's off topic. I'm aware of that, and I know I'm being picky, but one issue I have with stories like this is the author writes themselves into a situation where there is like this insurmountable enemy. She talked about how they could turn people to dust, how they have magic. He paralyzed her by just doing nothing, and basically she has no thing about it. So how in the hell did her ancestors go to war with these people and even remotely survive?
Honestly, I've wondered that myself. A lot.
Like, even Babylon 5, it at least explains it with, like, those really ancient races just basically made a deal, and they're like, we're not going to fuck with the regular people anymore. But there was no, like, oh, well, no, we won a battle against this invincible force years ago. It makes no sense. And I'm not picking on her because a lot of fantasy authors do this.
No, like, a lot of fantasy authors do this, but at the same time, I have wondered that. Like, these fairies are supposed to be so super powerful, but, like, what was the treaty that they must have written up with them? Like, if humans are that puny.
It's like they're trying to do Lord of the Rings without doing it well. Like, Tolkien made it really well of making the old world much stronger than the current one was, and they explained it, and the elves were a big part of it, and then they left, and it's like, but no, not these authors. It's just like, oh, these fairies can turn you to dust. Anyway, we won a war against them. It's like, well, how?
In fairness, it's smut.
Yeah. Well,
you're not supposed to use the thinky parts of your brain when you read this.
Just saying. Pisses me off.
Me too, honestly. No, I've wondered several times, like, how did they fight these guys? And how did this war happen? Like, was there some sort of... Okay, so, look, Terry Brooks.
Maybe she'll explain it, and I'll be an asshole. Like,
maybe. But, like, yeah, I remember in Terry Brooks there was, like, this whole ancient technology stuff, and so, like, even in the first book, it was like, there was stuff that existed from the war. So you got the sense that there was stuff that people had known that they'd kind of lost track of, but there was a time that it made sense, and then, here it's just kind of like, there was a war!
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we won!
We won!
Or did they win?
Well, they came to a mutual agreement, a peace treaty. So.
It sounds more like an armistice to me.
Yeah.
I'm sure she doesn't know what that is.
So much food, some of it wafting tendrils of steam that my mouth watered. Be our guest, be our guest. At least it was familiar that I couldn't eat. That was the first rule we were taught as children, usually in songs or chants. Okay, points to her for remembering that when you go to the fairy realm, you don't eat the fairy food. Like, that's a trope. It's very common. Good on her for remembering it.
I honestly don't know enough about fairies.
I know bits and pieces. Like, I encounter them when I read fantasy, sci-fi, stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah, no, that's one of the rules. You don't eat the fairy food. In fact, remember my dwarf story? Yeah, like, there's a point at which they go to an elven realm, and inside the elven realm, there's this long table, and if you accidentally eat any of the food at the table, you go into, like, this mystic trance, and basically be tripping balls for a century before you get out of it, because you lose all track of time. And it was basically a repetition of that fairy trope where you don't eat the food. The wood groaning, and in a flash of white light turned into a golden-haired man. Ooh. I stifled a cry and pushed myself against Fae, one of their ruling nobility, beautiful, lethal, and merciless. Woohoo! It only gets hornier from here. God. Here we are. He was young, or at least.
But he's going to be old too, so he's going to have the
He's
wisdom.
ancient, but he's also ageless, so he's young looking and sexy, but he's also,
Does he have a hot temper though? That she needs to,
Beauty and the Beast. Okay, so he was young, or at least what I could see of his face seemed young.
I can't wait till Jordan Peterson talks about this.
That's gonna be fun. His nose, cheeks, and brows were covered by an exquisite golden mask embedded with
emeralds. Is a
emeralds.
symbolic thing that's in all of us. Inside each man there are two wolves. One fey with giant horns, and the other a young man who's young and sexy. The wolf is symbolic. Of the wolf in all of us, and you can choose to be the horned monster busting into a woman's house and taking her away, or the young prince who sits on the throne. Yeah, think about it. There's not enough alcohol for this story. Just go, continue, let's get this over with. You know, Jung wrote about this. He called it the shadow. And where did we find the wolf? In the shadow before the deer, which is innocence.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, I'll tell you, bucko, you're in the middle of the woods fighting a shadow and there's innocence in the way. You're gonna have a bad time. With your snotty-nosed sisters and your bitch of another sister and a father who's gonna throw you to, well, once again, the wolves.
Okay, I think I've wrong jaw and mouth for me to see. The latter tightened into a thin line. He's got a strong jaw there, James.
Of course he does.
Of course he does. Leather baldric across his broad chest. That's the one thing that drives me nuts about fantasy writing. You have to figure out what all the different clothes are called, and then figure out who would be wearing them, and then figure out how to imagine up clothes for people. It's actually really annoying to do that. But a warrior too.
God. Is the butch mercenary gonna come for her? Maybe that's Gaston.
It's not a lesbian fantasy, sadly.
No, but
we could have some fun with that. No, I don't think
she'd be better off with the mercenary.
I don't think the mercenary is her Gaston, though. I don't think it's going to go that direction. It'd be interesting if it did, but I don't think it's going to. He too wore a mask. Okay, how many? Okay, we got two guys here now. Didn't hide the eye that was missing. Or what?
Just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. Okay, so I guess the fox guy is named Lucian. Lucian.
That works.
Sounds like a sexy fairy name. So I mean, yeah, no. She's in a magic land full of sexy man fairies.
God.
He must have learned my name at my cottage. Those striking green eyes.
I mean, her dad said it like 20 times, so if he didn't pick up on it.
It's the only word he could get out. Yeah, that's true. I flinched. Well, at least she didn't wince this time.
Yeah, only a flinch.
Led me through, Alice led me through halls of gold. I was just thinking about that little clip that I had set up for the beginning of this. Let's see what I got in my drawers. It's perfect. It's perfect, isn't it?
Well now, what shall we dress you in for dinner? Oh, let's see what I got in my drawers. Oh, how embarrassing.
I figured that's what was going to happen. I mean, she enters the fairy realm right away,
Right.
So
You're a poor dirtbag, here's some clothes.
You poor dirtbag, here's some clothes. So yeah, I set that up because I figured...
Look, Lucian, poor people.
Okay, so they're going to dress her in a velvet turquoise dress. Okay, this is one of the things I notice with a lot of romance novels that always drives me nuts. The emphasis on the dresses and the clothes and the jewelry and the pretty, and I just, we're already there. Velvet turquoise dress.
I need to read War and Peace this year. It's on my list. Just the snooty nobles that you vapid and you don't care about. Like, it just reminded me of War and Peace.
I mean, War and Peace is kind of a book that I get the impression, at least, you have to trudge through. And this is a book that we're trudging through. And I'm bringing you along for the journey because I wouldn't want to make it by myself. It is so much better with you making Jordan Peterson references. Makes it all so much more livable.
The clothes are symbolic of baptism. She becomes a new person from the squalor of her hovel. And becomes a new celestial light being.
Let's see.
But only if she can tame the wolf.
Pleading for my old clothes to be returned. Alice refused. You have any more?
No.
You have any more JP there?
Nope.
I wouldn't be able to move freely in a gown. In fairness, I try to avoid them for that reason as well sometimes. Bundled in my robe, I sat for a minute after
I would
minute.
like to see you in a dress.
You do see me in dresses sometimes.
Yeah, but like a formal gown.
I mean, I could do that, I suppose. Like, how gowny are we talking?
Well, the thing is, like, I don't know, with the whole work from home and all of that, like, the chance of having, like, a big fancy business meeting where that would be necessary is just dead.
I mean, I could put one on for date night and just kind of... I mean, it's either that or a naughty maid outfit. Which one speaks to you more? I'll ask you the day of, and then I'll put one of the two on. I'll spend the rest of the day just walking around the house in it.
I don't think I would torture you like that.
I think I'd get used to it after a few hours, I mean, I had to get used to dresses. So when I worked at Walmart, they had a policy. They've since done away with it. You can now wear shorts if you're working outdoors or being exposed to the outdoors or outdoor weather. But when I was working there, like, you couldn't wear shorts. And so we were in the truck, and the truck would get up to like 100 degrees in there.
Stupid.
And so you weren't allowed to wear shorts, but you could wear a dress.
So back when I went to grade school, middle school, they were old buildings. Now granted, it was Michigan, but there was no air conditioning. Fuck that. We didn't have air conditioning. And boys were not allowed to wear shorts and girls could wear skirts.
Yep.
And that was always like, we always used to get very frustrated at that because it was like, well, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Well, technically, according to the rules, and I looked it up because, I mean, everybody I worked with was a dude. I was like, okay, there is no rule that says that men cannot wear skirts to work. So what you can do is you can get a kilt, and you can go into the back of the truck in a kilt and get all that nice airflow, and there is nothing in the work regulations that would stop you from doing that.
I had to wear a real kilt, and those can get hot.
Well, maybe not a real kilt, but I mean, technically a skirt. They could wear a skirt. I remember one time, I think it was Michael. He went into the back of the truck and he was working with me, and I didn't even notice. He had taken his pants off and he had a pair of shorts on under his pants.
Smart.
And so he just took his pants off. And I mean, I was doing the same thing with my shirt. Like, I had a little, like, I had a shirt over my shirt, and one of them was like a up to code shirt, and then the other one was like a little kind of a slip droppy thing, like what I'm wearing right now, a little tank top. And so, like, when we were in the back of the truck, it was kind of one of those things where we would start, like, playing around with our clothes to just keep ourselves from dying of heat stroke.
Heaven forbid you be comfortable when you're doing back-breaking labor.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the thing. Like, you're supposed to really work up a sweat.
Do it for Sam.
Yeah. My dressing gown was of the finest silk, edged with lace, simple and exquisite enough that I ran a finger along the lapels. Once again, the emphasis on clothes, because, you know. When I buttoned the dark blue tunic and ran my hands over the scratchy golden thread embroidered on the lapels. Like, see, this is typical romance novel shit. Golden thread embroidered on the lapels.
Sounds fancy.
I mean, it's fancy, but I mean, I get bogged down in that stuff. It's like, who cares about clothes? Like, give me some action. Give me some story. Give me some plot. I don't care about golden lapels. I care about plot. Give me plot. They don't want to do that. Lucian drawled from his seat along the length of the table. I told you so, Tamlin. Oh, Tamlin! Okay, that goes back to an old legend about... I'm trying to remember. It was a story about a guy who went into the woods. It was something about a fairy. I don't remember much of it because it was a song by a band that I listened to, but it's in German, so I didn't really understand what they were saying. But yeah, that's a mythical name. So Tamlin. Decades. Yep. He's got a very young face, but he's very old.
Of course he is.
Then lethal, a predator blooded with power. It was... Was that a compliment? I could have sworn Lucian gave Tamlin an encouraging nod. Oh gosh, this is it. This is Beauty and the Beast. Like, Lucian can be like the candlestick guy.
Oh,
and
I'm already there.
They're giving him like advice on how to talk to a woman because like he's so bad at it.
Because he, instead of marrying some other fey creature that he's betrothed, if he finds a human woman, and or he has a tulip up in his east wing.
The tulip, and the petals are falling off one by one. Well, it is what is it? A court of thorns and roses.
Oh,
so
Jesus!
There you go. There you go. It's a rose. It's gonna be a freaking rose.
Fuck
that. That's what it's gonna be. Let's see.
It is too.
Yep.
How many bottles, or not bottles, but boxes of wine did she drink to write this?
You know, when I was like really, really young, my mom and I used to joke that one day I would sell out to make money and write like really trashy romance novels.
Oh, I would.
Oh, don't you have any interests?
So bad.
It's the library, James. He's gonna give her an easel and she's gonna feel butterflies. I want to hear details. He turned to me, ancient and brutal and unyielding. He's ancient and brutal and unyielding. And sexy.
Of course he is.
And Lucian will do his best to be polite. He threw a pointed look in his direction. Lucian shrugged. The invisible bonds loosened. To be fair, honestly, I have read some very bad smut in my life. This is not bad smut.
I mean, if you're liking it.
I'm not liking it. I'm just saying that it's not horribly written. Like, I have read some horribly written things. This is not horribly written.
I mean, it's not Sonic fan fiction.
Yeah. No, I have seen some stuff that is basically just Sonic fan fiction, and it's bad. I mean, so far we really haven't had to worry about bad writing. Like, yeah, it's kind of cliched. Yeah, it's definitely Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, she's a Mary Sue, but it's not bad writing. I'll just keep reading. And I winced. She winced.
Of course she did.
Glanced at Tamlin's smoldering green eyes, told me his smoldering green eyes. He has smoldering green eyes.
Of course he does.
I'm wrong in asking why you find our company to be so unpleasant, when surely the men back home aren't much to look at. Okay, well, that's a little blunt. Surely we're not so miserable to look at. Am I pretty? Am I pretty? And do you love anyone else? Tamlin said through clenched teeth. Oh, this is going in a direction right away, isn't it? They're not being subtle. They're not taking... They're wasting no time. They're wasting no time here.
Nobody wants, like, a long intro to pornography.
I suppose. Yeah. I have to take my contacts out. My eyes are getting dry. Okay, I think I figured it out, because there was a moment that I was thinking to myself that this was almost like an actual, like, novel. Because it reads kind of like an actual novel. Maybe not necessarily a good novel. Maybe not necessarily a good novel, but like a novel. It reads like a novel. So there was a part of me that kind of forgot that I was reading smut and that it was going to go in a smutty direction, like really, really fast. And so it kind of surprised me when it started to go in a smutty direction. I was like, she's going to get to know these guys. She's going to get to know some sort of story about their past, and then they're going to start becoming interesting, and then, you know, she's going to start, you know, eventually building up some tension with them and all that stuff. But no, right out of the gate, it's like, hey, don't you think we're pretty? I'm kind of wondering, like, it's probably just the Beauty and the Beast thing. Like, the rose in the West Wing is slowly losing its petals, so they're in a bit of a hurry to get going with her. And, you know...
God.
I kill too often as it is, Tamlin said finally, shrugging his broad shoulders.
I'm dangerous.
Yep. I'm dangerous. I'm bad. I'm sexy. My sisters hissed at me every morning for waking them up so early. There's a lot of hissing, too. Like, the sisters are always hissing at her, clucking their tongues like chickens and, like, yeah, feet from the bed. But Alice was already up, hissing at me. Hissing. Alice clicked her tongue.
Clicking
the tongue. Yep. We should make a drinking game out of that.
My liver can't handle that.
I cringed at my reflection. Okay, she didn't wince this time. We've gone from wincing to cringing.
God.
It wasn't pleasing, though not for its actual appearance. While my nose was relatively straight. Okay, here we go. We finally get... She's looking in a mirror, too. That's like the oldest cliche of, like, getting a sense of how your character looks. It's like...
Looking in a mirror.
Looking in a mirror. But she's looking in a mirror, so it's like, while my nose was relatively straight, I would have lived up to my namesake were it not for the effects of poverty. But I'd never particularly cared. Beauty didn't mean... Oh, wait. Feyre means beautiful? Beauty and the Beast.
Does it? I mean, her name actually means nothing. It's
Okay.
a made-up name. But...
I would have lived up to my namesake were it not for the effects of poverty. But I'd never particularly cared.
I would have been
Beauty-
beautiful if I wasn't poor.
Beauty didn't mean anything in the forest. Okay, so... Yeah, who knows? It's just a still life, a part of me said. And it was a still life. Okay, she and her family got run out of their manor when she was still a small child, and so she doesn't know that much about art, but she knows what a still life is.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Alright, she does. To make them more than lifelike. Just
You
a
know,
vase of flowers.
They have time to create high art in the bumfuck nowhere, debt-stricken, everybody's poor.
Yeah, she had time to paint all those little paintings with the paint her sisters
and
gave
study
her.
it and see it and understand it and the different types of it.
Maybe she's a prodigy. I mean,
And
an art
she's everything
prodigy.
else, so.
Yeah, like she's a hunter, she's a fighter, she's an art prodigy.
She would have been beautiful if she wasn't so poor.
And she's beautiful. Let's see.
Would have been beautiful.
Would have been beautiful. Oh, don't worry, she'll get beautiful. Just give her a few meals and she'll be fine. Tamlin.
So all the human males so far have been incompetent and stupid.
But all the fairy men are just like hot, sexy.
Incompetent.
What?
Incompetent.
And competent.
And competent, yeah.
Hot, sexy fairies, man. Even as he bit out the words, I couldn't ignore the sheer male beauty of that strong jaw, the richness of his golden tan skin. He was probably handsome if he ever took off that mask. Oh, God.
I can't wait to find out why they wear masks.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. The wall is an inconvenience. If we cared to, we could shatter it and march through and kill you all. Yeah, how did they end up coming to a peace treaty in that war if all they had to do was just walk right on through and start slaughtering everybody?
The only show that I ever saw that did it right was Babylon 5.
Nah.
When the Minbari were going to wipe out all of humanity, and when they got up to Earth, they stopped. And there's a very good reason they stopped. And they surrendered. Did you ever get to the point where it explained why they stopped?
They kind of skirted around a lot, but I didn't actually finish the series, and so we need to do that someday. Oh, wasn't it that the ancient souls were being, like, born in humans?
Pretty much.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I did hear it. Alright, that's chapter 8 that's starting up. I am quite tired. I think I might stop.
That's fine.
Yeah. Alright. So, what do you think so far?
I have no opinion.
Seems like typical romance novel stuff. She's been like it's totally just straight out of Beauty and the Beast.
Like you said, it's not horrible, but I'm certainly not going to bed at night going, "Oh God, why did we stop reading it? Like, what's going to happen next?"
Honestly, I get excited about this just to see what your reaction is. Because that's what makes it fun.
Well, at least they answered the question of like, "Oh, we're just going to take care of your loser family for you."
Oh, that's nice. You know,
which just rewards the family for throwing her to them too. Like,
well, I mean, the whole story, her family has just been enabled like crazy. Like, she was enabling them by feeding them, and now that she's gone, they're being enabled by the fairies, and they're just horrible, useless people. And it looks like they're gonna be horrible, useless people until the day they die.
Yeah.
But then again, we don't know how the fairies are providing for them either.
God.
I'm waiting till we get to the smutty parts. I'm looking forward to bleeping out some words here.
Didn't you say that the first book isn't that smutty?
Yeah, apparently, like, I've heard that the first book only has one sex scene in it, and that the smutty parts come in the later books. Like, first book happens pretty clean, one big sex scene, and then subsequent books it's just smut. So, we're gonna have to read subsequent books too then.
Yay.
We got 46 chapters in the first one.
God. What a name to Feyre.
Let's see. We're on chapter 8, right? Like, we're going to be starting chapter 8. I have to unlock your phone now. Let's see. Yep, we're at the beginning of chapter 8. So, 39 chapters to go.
God help us.